Admiral Jack Morrison stood in the command center of Earth's biggest space station, looking at the bright screens that showed information from far away. The UES Horizon was humanity's first ship built to explore the deep parts of space where no human had ever been before. Captain Lisa Warren was in charge of the ship and her crew of 50 brave men and women who had volunteered to go where others feared to travel for 3 months. The Horizon had been checking out the Kepler 442 system, a place with planets that might be good for humans to live on someday. The crew had been excited because early scans showed one planet had water and an atmosphere that looked promising. Lisa had sent reports back to Earth every day, telling them about the amazing things they were finding in this new star system, but on day 93, everything changed in a way that would shake the entire human race to its core. Dr. Kevin Blake was working in his lab on Earth when the emergency signal came through. He was the smartest person anyone knew when it came to studying life forms from other worlds, even though no one had ever found any before. Kevin had spent his whole career preparing for the day when humans would meet aliens, but he never thought it would happen like this. The signal was weak and broken, full of static and fear. Lisa's voice came through the speakers and she sounded scared in a way that made everyone in the command center feel cold inside. She was trying to stay calm, but everyone could hear that something terrible was happening. "Earth Command, this is Captain Warren of the UES Horizon," her voice crackled. "Through the communication system. We have made contact with an alien structure, but they are not friendly. I repeat, they are not friendly." The next few minutes brought reports that no one wanted to hear. The Horizon had found a massive alien ship floating in space near the 4th planet in the system. It was bigger than anything humans had ever built, made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. The ship had strange symbols carved into its hull and weapons that looked like nothing in any human textbook. When Lisa tried to communicate with the aliens using mathematics and simple pictures, the response was immediate and brutal. Energy beams that glowed with an evil red light tore through the Horizon's escort fighters like they were made of paper. The weapons moved faster than anything humans had ever seen, and they hit with the power of small nuclear bombs. They destroyed our fighters. "In seconds," Lisa reported, her voice shaking. "The alien weapons cut through our shields like they were not even there. We are trying to get away, but they are following us." Dr. Blake watched the data streaming in from the Horizon sensors, and what he saw made his blood run cold. The alien ship was not just attacking, it was hunting. It moved with purpose and intelligence, cutting off the Horizon's escape routes and forcing the human ship into a trap. President Amanda Stone was in a meeting with world leaders when the news reached her. She was a strong woman who had led Earth through many difficult times, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The phone call from Admiral Morrison made her face go pale, and she immediately called for an emergency meeting of the World Defense Council. Meanwhile, in space, the Horizon was fighting for its life. The alien ship had caught up to them, and it was clear that the aliens wanted to destroy every human they could find. The Horizon's weapons were like throwing rocks at a mountain. They had no effect on the alien ship's hull. "We cannot hurt them," Lisa reported in her final transmission. "Their technology is far beyond ours. If anyone receives this message, you must warn Earth. These aliens see us as enemies, and they will not stop until we are all dead." The transmission ended with the sound of explosions and screaming, then nothing but empty static filled the command center. Everyone knew what that silence meant. The Horizon was gone. And with it, 50 of humanity's best and bravest people. Dr. Blake spent the next few hours studying every piece of data they had received from the Horizon. The aliens, who he decided to call the Valak based on symbols seen on their ship, had technology that was hundreds of years ahead of anything humans had developed. Their ships moved faster than the speed of light, their weapons could destroy entire cities, and they seemed to work together like a hive mind. As the news spread across Earth, panic began to set in. Humans had always dreamed of meeting aliens, but they had imagined peaceful contact and sharing knowledge. Instead, they had found an enemy that wanted to wipe them out completely. Admiral Morrison called together every military leader on Earth and in the colonies. The message was clear. Humanity was now at war with an enemy they did not understand, fighting for their very survival in a galaxy that had suddenly become a very dangerous place. General Ryan Hayes had been a soldier for 30 years, but nothing had prepared him for the meeting that would change everything. He sat in the underground bunker beneath Pentagon Complex 7, looking at the faces of world leaders who all showed the same expression of fear and determination. The news from the horizon had reached every corner of Earth, and now humanity faced its greatest challenge. President Amanda Stone stood at the head of the table, her voice steady despite the weight of what she was about to say. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now at war with an alien species that has technology we cannot match. Our best scientists tell us that the Valak Empire has weapons and ships that are hundreds of years ahead of anything we have built. General Hayes looked at the reports spread across the table. Earth's military had been designed to fight other humans, not aliens from another star system. The unified fleets that protected Earth and the colonies were small and scattered, built for keeping peace rather than fighting a war for survival. How many ships do we have that can actually fight? Asked Admiral Morrison through the video link from the orbital command station. Counting everything from the Mars Defense Fleet to the asteroid mining patrol ships, we have maybe 200 vessels that could be used in combat, General Hayes replied. But most of them are not real warships. They are cargo haulers and science vessels with some weapons added on. The room fell silent as everyone understood what this meant. The Valak had destroyed the Horizon and its escort fighters without taking any damage at all. If they came to Earth with a real fleet, humanity would be wiped out in a matter of hours. Colonel Susan Mitchell stood up from her chair at the end of the table. She was in charge of the military's most secret projects, the ones that most people did not even know existed. We do have one advantage, she said. The Horizon's final transmission included detailed scans of the alien ship and its weapons. We have pieces of their technology to study. Dr. Kevin Blake had been working without sleep for 3 days since the Horizon's destruction. He had teams of scientists studying every bit of data they could find about the Valak technology. The alien ship used some kind of energy source that humans had never seen before, and their weapons seemed to bend space itself when they fired. We call it Project Aegis, Colonel Mitchell continued. We are going to reverse engineer their technology and find ways to fight back. It will take time, but we can do it if we work together. Meanwhile, Captain Tony Rodriguez was traveling across the solar system, visiting every colony and space station to recruit soldiers for the war. The response was overwhelming. Young people lined up by the thousands to volunteer, knowing that they might never see their families again. Lieutenant Amy Foster was one of the first to sign up. She had been a civilian pilot flying cargo ships between Earth and Mars, but when she heard about the alien attack, she knew she had to fight. I want to be a fighter pilot, she told Captain Rodriguez. I want to make those aliens pay for what they did to the Horizon. Sergeant Chris Murphy had been a Marine stationed on Europa when the news came. He immediately requested transfer to the new alien combat units being formed. My grandfather fought in the Third World War, he said. Now it is my turn to defend humanity. The training programs were unlike anything the military had ever attempted. Pilots learned to fly in ways that pushed human bodies to their limits, preparing for the kind of high-speed combat that the Valak used. Soldiers trained with weapons that had never been tested in real combat, hoping they would work when the time came. On Mars, engineer Rebecca Taylor was working 18-hour days to convert the planet's industrial facilities from peaceful production to military manufacturing. The Red Planet's factories, which had been making terraforming equipment and civilian spacecraft, were now building humanity's first real warships. We are calling them the Defender class, Rebecca explained to General Hayes during his inspection tour. They are not as advanced as the alien ships, but they are built to take damage and keep fighting. Each one carries enough firepower to destroy a small city. The asteroid belt became a hive of activity as miners worked to extract the metals needed for ship construction. Every piece of steel, titanium, and rare earth elements was needed for the war effort. Families who had never owned weapons were learning to fight, and children were being taught to hide in shelters when the alarm sounded. But the most important work was happening in the secret laboratories where Dr. Blake and his team were studying the fragments of Valak technology. They had found something interesting in the alien ship's hull material. It was not just metal, but some kind of living metal that could repair itself and adapt to different kinds of damage. If we can figure out how this works, we might be able to make our own ships stronger, Dr. Blake reported to the Scientific Council. The aliens are not invincible. They just have technology we do not understand yet. As the months passed, humanity began to change. The peaceful civilization that had spent centuries exploring space and building colonies was becoming something harder and more determined. Every person on Earth and in the colonies knew that the Valak were coming, and when they arrived, humanity would be ready to fight back. Commander Paul Anderson was standing on the bridge of the UES Defiance when the alarm started screaming. The massive displays showed dozens of red dots moving through space toward Earth's solar system, and every single one of them was bigger than any ship humanity had ever built. The Valak had returned, and this time they brought a real fleet. "How many ships are we looking at?" Paul asked his communications officer, Lieutenant Matt Thompson, who was frantically working at his station to get clear readings from the long range. "Sensors, 37 ships, sir," Matt replied, his voice tight with worry. "The smallest one is twice the size of our biggest battleship. They will be here in 6 hours." Paul had been chosen to command humanity's first fleet because he was the best tactical mind in the unified military. He had studied every piece of data from the Horizon's encounter with the aliens, and he knew that the coming battle would be the most important fight in human history. If they lost here, Earth would fall and humanity would be wiped out forever. The first fleet consisted of every warship that humanity could put together. 25 brand-new Defender-class battleships, 43 converted civilian vessels with weapons bolted onto their hulls, and 112 of the new Raptor-class fighters that had been built specifically to fight the Valak. Captain Nicole Wright was sitting in the cockpit of her Raptor fighter, checking her weapon systems one last time before the battle began. She had been Amy Foster's flight instructor during the accelerated training program, and now both women were about to face the enemy that had killed the crew of the Horizon. "All pilots, this is Flight Command," came the voice through Nicole's headset. "Remember your training? The alien ships are faster and stronger than ours, but they cannot turn as quickly. Use your speed and stay close to the big ships where their main guns cannot target you." The Valak fleet came out of hyperspace near Jupiter's orbit, their dark ships emerging from the void like nightmares made real. Each alien vessel was a work of art and terror, with smooth curves and weapon ports that glowed with threatening energy. They moved in perfect formation. As if controlled by a single mind, Commander Anderson watched the enemy fleet approach and felt his heart sink. The intelligence reports had been right. The Valak ships were far more advanced than anything humanity had built. Their hulls seemed to shimmer with some kind of energy shield, and their weapons were already charging for the first attack. "All ships, this is Anderson," he said into his communication system. "We knew this day would come. Every person on Earth is counting on us to stop these aliens here. We may not have their technology, but we have something they do not understand. We fight for our families, our homes, and our freedom." The battle began when the Valak opened fire at maximum range. Beams of crimson energy lanced across space, moving so fast that they seemed to bend the light around them. The first human ship to be hit was the converted cargo hauler UES Challenger, and it simply vanished in a ball of fire and metal. "Return fire," Anderson shouted, and the human fleet launched everything they had. Nuclear missiles streaked toward the alien ships, followed by plasma bolts and kinetic rounds fired from railguns. But when the weapons hit the Valak shields, they simply disappeared like raindrops hitting a window. Captain Nicole Wright dove her fighter toward the nearest alien cruiser, trying to get close enough to find a weak spot in its defenses. The Valak ship's smaller weapons tracked her movement, sending deadly energy beams that missed her by inches as she twisted and turned through space. "Their shields are too strong," she reported to Flight Command. "Our weapons cannot get through." The battle was going badly for humanity. Ship after ship was destroyed by the alien weapons, and the human fleet was being pushed back toward Earth. Lieutenant Matt Thompson was coordinating the retreat when he noticed something strange about the enemy formation. "Commander, the alien ships are not working together as well as they did in the first attack," he reported. "They seem to be having trouble coordinating their movements." Anderson studied the tactical display and saw that Matt was right. The Valak ships were still deadly, but they were not moving with the perfect unity they had shown when they destroyed the Horizon. Something was interfering with their ability to work together. "Dr. Blake was right," Anderson said to himself. "They do have weaknesses." The breakthrough came when Captain Nicole Wright's fighter was damaged by a near miss from an alien weapon. Her engines were failing and her weapons were offline, but she was still alive and flying straight toward a Valak cruiser that was preparing to destroy the UES Defiance. "This is for the crew of the Horizon," Nicole said as she aimed her crippled fighter at the alien ship's engine section. She had noticed that the Valak ships had a weak point where their power systems connected to their weapons, and she was going to hit it as hard as she could. The impact was tremendous. Nicole's fighter, moving at nearly 10% of light speed, punched through the alien ship's shields and buried itself deep in the cruiser's hull. The explosion that followed lit up space like a small sun, and when the light faded, the Valak ship was breaking apart. "Did you see that?" Matt Thompson shouted over the communication system. "The alien ship exploded!" Captain Wright found their weak point. The human fleet rallied around this first victory. Now they knew that the Valak ships could be destroyed. They just had to be willing to sacrifice everything to do it. The battle continued for 6 more hours, with human ships ramming alien vessels and fighters making suicide runs to take out enemy weapons. When the Valak fleet finally retreated, humanity had lost half of their ships and thousands of brave men and women. But they had also destroyed 8 alien vessels and gathered enough data to understand how the enemy technology worked. The war was far from over, but humanity had proven that they could fight back against the Valak Empire. Dr. Rachel Barnes had not slept in 4 days, but she could not stop working. The wreckage from the battle near Jupiter was spread across 12 research stations, and every piece of twisted alien metal might hold the key to humanity's survival. She was the best engineer on Earth when it came to understanding how things worked, and now she was humanity's best hope for fighting back against the Valak Empire. The breakthrough came when she was examining a piece of the alien ship's communication array. The metal was not really metal at all, but some kind of living material that could change its shape and properties. When she ran electricity through it, the material began to vibrate in a pattern that reminded her of quantum entanglement theory. "They are not just talking to each other," Rachel said to her assistant, Dr. Tom Price, who was working at the next table. "They are sharing thoughts. The entire Valak fleet operates like a single organism with many bodies." This discovery explained why the alien ships had fought so well together during their first attack, and why they had seemed confused during the battle at Jupiter. Something had been interfering with their ability to share information, breaking the mental link that made them so dangerous. Rachel worked for another 20 hours without stopping, testing different frequencies and energy patterns on the alien material. Finally, she found what she was looking for. When she hit the material with a specific type of electromagnetic pulse, it stopped working completely. "General Hayes, you need to see this," she called to the military commander who was overseeing the research project. "I can break their communication system. If we can disrupt their quantum entanglement network, the Valak ships will not be able to work together." But there was more. The alien ship hulls were made of the same living metal as their communication systems, and Rachel had discovered that they were vulnerable to the same electromagnetic frequency. The pulse that would break their communications would also damage They're holes in weapons. We can hurt them, Rachel told the assembled military leaders. We can build weapons that will make their technology stop working. But we need to get close enough to use them, and that means we need to attack them in their own territory. General Hayes looked at the tactical maps showing the known positions of Valak forces. The aliens had built a staging area in the Proxima Centauri system, just over 4 light-years from Earth. Intelligence reports suggested that they were gathering a much larger fleet there, preparing for a final attack that would destroy humanity completely. We need to hit them before they come. To us, Hayes decided, if we can destroy their staging area, we might buy enough time to build more ships and weapons. Captain Steve Collins was chosen to lead the attack force. He was a veteran of the Jupiter battle, one of the few ship commanders who had faced the Valak and lived to tell about it. His ship, the UES Vengeance, was fitted with the new EMP torpedo systems that Dr. Barnes had designed. How many ships can we spare for this mission? Collins asked during the planning meeting. 15 of our best ships, Admiral Morrison replied. It is not many, but they are all equipped with the new weapons. If Dr. Barnes is right about the alien weaknesses, 15 ships should be enough to cause serious damage. The journey to Proxima Centauri took 3 weeks using humanity's fastest ships. During the trip, the crew trained constantly with the new weapons and tactics that had been developed from studying the alien technology. They knew that this mission would either save humanity or doom it completely. When they arrived at the Proxima Centauri system, what they saw made everyone's blood run cold. The Valak staging area was enormous, with over 60 alien ships arranged in a perfect geometric pattern around a massive space station. The station itself was the size of a small moon, covered with weapon emplacements and docking bays. There are too many of them, whispered Lieutenant Sarah Davis, who was serving as Collins' tactical officer. Even with our new weapons, we cannot fight that many ships. But Captain Collins had studied the intelligence reports carefully, and he had a plan. The Valak ships were all connected to the space station through their quantum communication network. If they could destroy the station's central communication hub, every ship in the system would be cut off from the hive mind. All ships, this is Collins, he said over the communication system. We are going to hit them fast and hard. Target the space station's central tower. That is where their main communication system is located. The human ships came out of hyperspace at full speed, their new EMP weapons already charging. The Valak were caught completely by surprise, their ships scrambling to respond to the sudden attack. But without their perfect coordination, they moved like confused animals instead of a single deadly organism. The first EMP torpedoes hit the alien space station and sent waves of electromagnetic energy through its hull. The living metal began to writhe and twist as the pulse disrupted its quantum structure. Lights went out across the station, and the Valak ships suddenly stopped moving in formation. It is working, Captain Collins shouted as he watched the alien fleet break apart into individual ships that no longer worked together. Keep firing, do not let them recover. The battle at Proxima Centauri was humanity's first real victory against the Valak Empire. When the space station's central tower exploded, taking the communication hub with it, the entire alien fleet was left blind and confused. Human ships picked them off one by one, using their superior maneuverability to avoid the alien weapons. Commander Janet Lewis, leading the reconnaissance squadron, made an important discovery while exploring the wreckage of the space station. Deep in the alien database, she found records that showed the Valak were not the original inhabitants of their worlds. They had conquered and enslaved dozens of other species, just as they were trying to do to humanity. The galaxy is full of species that hate the Valak, Janet reported to Captain Collins. We are not alone in this war. There are others who want to see the Valak Empire destroyed. When the human fleet returned to Earth, they brought with them proof that the Valak could be defeated and hoped that humanity might find allies in their fight for survival. The war was far from over, but for the first time since the destruction of the horizon, humanity had reason to believe they might actually win. The message came through the quantum communication system 3 days after the victory at Proxima Centauri. and it changed everything humanity thought they knew about the galaxy. Ambassador Helen Carter was working in her office at the United Nations Space Command when the alien transmission arrived, speaking in perfect English with a voice that sounded like music. "Greetings, warriors of Earth," the voice said. "We are the Zelani Confederation, and we have been fighting the Valak Empire for over 300 years. Your victory at Proxima Centauri has given us hope that the endless cycle of war might finally be broken." Helen had been chosen as humanity's first interstellar diplomat because she could speak 12 languages and had spent her career negotiating peace between different human nations. But nothing had prepared her for the moment when she would speak to aliens who were actually friendly. The Zelani explained that they were not just one species, but a collection of different alien races who had banded together to fight the Valak. They had blue skin and 4 arms, but they thought and felt emotions much like humans did. Their technology was different from both human and Valak designs, focused on defense and protection rather than conquest. "The Valak have been expanding across this part of the galaxy for 1,000 years, explained Commander Zekthal, the Zelani military leader who appeared on the communication screen. "They conquer worlds, enslave the populations, and use their resources to build bigger fleets. We thought they could never be stopped until you humans showed us that their coordination could be broken." Helen learned that the galaxy was caught in a terrible pattern that had been going on for centuries. Aggressive species like the Valak would expand and conquer until they controlled hundreds of worlds. Then another aggressive species would rise up and destroy them, only to start the same cycle of conquest all over again. "The Valak are not even the worst empire we have faced," Zekthal continued. "Before them, there were the Korth, who turned entire worlds into slave factories. Before the Korth, there were the Vex, who destroyed any species that would not join their collective mind. The pattern always repeats, but humanity had done something different. Instead of trying to conquer the Valak worlds for themselves, they had simply destroyed the staging area and left. This confused the other species in the galaxy who had never seen an aggressive race that did not want to take territory. Admiral Morrison was skeptical when Helen first told him about the Zelani offer of alliance. "How do we know they are not? Just another empire trying to use us for their own purposes?" he asked during the emergency meeting of the Earth Defense Council. "Because they are offering to share their technology without asking for anything in return," Helen replied. "They have defensive shields that can stop Valak weapons, and they know the locations of every Valak base in this part of the galaxy. They want to work together to end the Valak threat permanently." The alliance was approved, and within weeks, Zelani ships began arriving at Earth's orbital stations. The aliens were amazed by human technology, especially the electromagnetic pulse, weapons that could disrupt Valak communications. In return, they shared their quantum shield generators and star charts that showed the true size of the Valak Empire. Captain Jake Freeman was chosen to command the first combined human Zelani fleet. He had been a cargo pilot before the war, but his natural ability to think tactically had made him one of humanity's best military commanders. Now he was working with alien officers to plan attacks on Valak strongholds. "The Valak have made one critical mistake," explained Zelani science officer Relvin during a strategy meeting. "They have concentrated all their military production in a few heavily defended systems. If we can destroy those systems, their entire empire will collapse." The combined fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Human ships with their advanced weapons flew alongside Zelani vessels with their powerful shields. Fighter pilots from both species trained together, learning each other's tactics and sharing their knowledge of combat. But the most important discovery came when the fleet encountered other alien species who had been enslaved by the Valak. The Terran were a peaceful race of farmers who had been forced to grow food for the Valak armies. The Kepler were skilled engineers who had been building ships and weapons for their captors. The Voss were traders who had been turned into supply runners for the Valak fleet. "They all want to be free," Captain Freeman reported to Admiral Morrison. "Every species the Valak have conquered is ready to fight for their independence. We are not just fighting the Valak anymore, we are leading a revolution." The combined fleet grew larger with each victory. When they liberated the Toran homeworld, thousands of grateful aliens joined the fight. When they freed the Kepler shipyards, the engineers began building new weapons that combined human, Zelani and Kepler technology. Dr. Rachel Barnes worked with alien scientists to develop new types of weapons and defenses. The Zelani quantum shields were combined with human EMP technology to create ships that could survive direct hits from Valak weapons while disrupting enemy communications. The Kepler engineers designed new engines that could make ships move faster than anything the Valak had ever seen. "We are not just winning battles anymore," Rachel told General Hayes during her monthly report. "We are creating a new kind of civilization based on cooperation instead of conquest. Every species we free makes us stronger." The war began to turn in favor of the Alliance. Valak fleets that had seemed invincible were now being destroyed by coordinated attacks from multiple species working together. The aliens who had dominated the galaxy for centuries were finally facing an enemy they could not defeat. Commander Zekthal worked closely with Admiral Morrison to plan the final assault on the Valak core systems. The enemy had pulled back their fleets to defend their most important worlds, but even their strongest defenses could not stand against the combined technology and tactics of the free species. "The Valak homeworld of Kethvara is the key," Zekthal explained as they studied the tactical displays. "If we can capture it, every Valak ship in the galaxy will lose its connection to the Central Command. Without their hive mind, they will be helpless." The Alliance was ready for the final battle, but everyone knew that the fight for Kethvara would be the most dangerous mission of the war. The Valak had gathered every ship they could find to defend their homeworld, and they would fight with the desperation of a species facing extinction. The final battle for Kethvara began when the largest fleet in galactic history emerged from hyperspace around the Valak homeworld. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the U's Liberation, watching as thousands of ships from dozens of different species took their positions for the attack that would end the war. Human vessels flew alongside Zelani cruisers, Toran fighters, Kepler destroyers, and ships from 20 other freed worlds. "All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Morrison," he said into the communication system that connected every ship in the massive armada. "Today we end 1,000 years of tyranny. Today we show the galaxy that cooperation is stronger than conquest." The Valak had turned their homeworld into the most heavily defended planet in known space. Massive orbital stations surrounded Kethvara like a metal ring, each one bristling with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. The planet's surface was covered with shield generators and missile launchers, and the space around it was filled with mines and automated defense platforms. Captain Jake Freeman commanded the combined fleet's assault wing, leading ships from 6 different species in a coordinated attack on the orbital defenses. The diversity of the fleet was its greatest strength, as each species brought different technologies and tactics that the Valak had never faced before. "Kepler ships, begin your gravity bombardment of the eastern stations," Freeman ordered. Toran fighters, use your stealth systems to get behind the western platforms. Human ships, target their communication arrays with EMP weapons. The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Zelani quantum shields absorbed the devastating fire from Valak energy weapons, while human EMP torpedoes disrupted the enemy coordination systems. Kepler gravity bombs tore apart orbital stations, and Toran stealth fighters appeared from nowhere to destroy key targets, but the Valak fought with the desperation of a species that knew it was facing extinction. Their ships launched suicide attacks against the Alliance fleet, and their weapons fired until they overloaded and exploded. The battle raged for 3 days and 3 nights, with neither side willing to give up. The turning point came when Captain Maria Santos, commanding the experimental ship UES Breakthrough, used humanity's new gravity manipulation technology to collapse the main orbital defense network. The ship could bend space around itself, making it nearly impossible for enemy weapons to hit while allowing it to strike targets from impossible angles. "This is Santos," she reported as her ship tore through the Valak defenses like they were made of paper. I am approaching the central command station, preparing to take out their main communication hub. The destruction of the central command station sent shockwaves through the entire Valak fleet. Without their connection to the hive mind, individual ships began to behave erratically, some fleeing the battle while others attacked their own allies in confusion. Commander Zekfil led the assault on the planet's surface, coordinating with human ground forces to capture the Valak government centers. The aliens had never faced the kind of combined arms tactics that the Alliance used, with different species supporting each other in ways that multiplied their effectiveness. The Valak leadership is requesting surrender terms, reported Lieutenant Colonel Beth Adams, who was leading the human Marines on the ground. They want to negotiate a ceasefire. But Admiral Morrison knew that a simple ceasefire would not end the cycle of galactic warfare. The Valak Empire had to be completely dismantled, and something new had to take its place. President Amanda Stone, who had traveled to the front lines to witness the final battle, made the decision that would reshape the galaxy. "We do not accept their surrender," she announced to the combined fleet. "We demand the complete dissolution of the Valak Empire and the freedom of every enslaved world. But we will not replace their tyranny with our own." The proposal that President Stone made to the galactic community was revolutionary. Instead of creating a new empire to replace the Valak, the Alliance would establish a confederation of free worlds. Each species would govern itself according to its own customs and beliefs, but they would work together for mutual defense and cooperation. "We call it the Galactic Confederation," Stone explained to the representatives of 40 different species who had gathered on Kethvara after the battle. "No single species will rule over others. No empire will be allowed to conquer and enslave. We will share knowledge, trade freely, and protect each other from any who would return to the old ways." The idea was met with skepticism at first. Many species had spent so long under imperial rule that they could not imagine any other way of organizing galactic civilization. But the humans had proven that cooperation could be more powerful than conquest, and gradually the other species began to accept the new system. Dr. Rachel Barnes worked with scientists from across the galaxy to establish the technological sharing protocols that would prevent any one species from gaining too much military advantage over the others. The knowledge that had been hoarded by empires for centuries was now freely shared among all members of the Confederation. 5 years after the fall of Kethvara, Admiral Morrison stood in the observation deck of New Geneva Station, the Confederation's capital. Below him, he could see children from dozens of different species playing together in the station's gardens, their parents working side by side on projects that would benefit the entire galaxy. The scars of the war were still visible throughout the galaxy. Entire worlds had been devastated by the fighting, and millions of beings from many species had died in the struggle for freedom. But those sacrifices had created something that had never existed before in galactic history, a civilization based on cooperation rather than domination. "We did something extraordinary," Morrison said to Commander Zekfil, who was visiting the station for the Confederation Council meeting. "We broke a cycle that had lasted for thousands of years." "Yes," the Zilani officer replied, watching human and alien children play together. "But the real test will be whether we can keep it broken. The galaxy has a long memory, and there will always be those who believe that the strong should rule the weak." Morrison nodded, understanding the responsibility that humanity and their allies had taken on. They had not just won a war, they had created a new kind of galactic civilization that would need to be protected and nurtured for generations to come. But as he watched the children play, he felt confident that the future would be brighter than the past, and that humanity's first step into war had indeed changed the galaxy forever.